Good morning, everybody. My name is Brian Murphy. I'm the Senior Vice President for Buyer Development at OpenX, and I am thrilled to be joined today by Jen Hess and Gerry Bavaro from Merkle. For those of you not familiar with OpenX, OpenX is one of the world's leading supply-side platforms and omni-channel ad exchanges. We work with the world's largest premium publishers to help bring programmatic advertising solutions to our brand marketing clients. And we're also the only ad exchange with a supply-side identity graph that helps our clients bring their first and third-party data assets as well as their proprietary ID solutions to help identify and reach and engage their consumers across the open web on any device in any format, a topic we will be discussing on today's panel. I would like to welcome both Jen and Gerry, and let's start with some introductions from the both of you, starting with you, Jen.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Hess, and I'm the Vice President of Mercury Media Connections Operations. So Mercury is our proprietary people-based identity solution, and in my role, I sit between the Mercury product team, the Mercury Media Partnerships team, as well as the Dentsu Activations teams with the goal of setting everyone up for success when activating a Mercury ID. So through best practices, gathering user feedback, troubleshooting, and things of that nature.
And hi, everyone. I'm Gerry Bavaro, Chief Strategy Officer of Mercury. Mercury is the identity platform of Merkle, and as Jen said, we support Dentsu with their teams that are leveraging our platform to build audiences at a person level, connect them in a cookieless manner across ad exchanges and direct publishers. My job is leading a sales and solutions team. So we license as Merkle in the open market our identity product to organizations to build enterprise first-party identity. I also lead the team that's building all of our integrations with ad tech platforms, MarTech platforms like CDPs, personalization engines, as well as direct-to-publisher that we enable also.
Thanks to you both. So I have a bunch of questions, but I also want to remind the audience that if any of you have questions that you would like to ask via the app, we will potentially have the chance to address those, time permitting, towards the end of our conversation. First question is for you, Jen. Can you just help our audience understand a bit more about the problems that Mercury and Merkle solve for your clients, and just dive into a little bit about the offering that you bring to them?
Sure. So Merkle is a CXM business partner for the Fortune 1000. We're one of the few data safe havens here in the U.S. And we're increasingly a core part of the Dentsu strategy as a result, in part, of our Mercury platform, which, as we said, is our proprietary people-based identity solution. The Mercury platform includes 268 million individuals, 11,000 attributes, and connects in a cookieless way to more than 70 different partners across the MarTech, AdTech, and media ecosystems.
And Gerry, question for you. Help us understand how Merkle and Mercury fit inside the broader organization at Dentsu.
Yeah, so many of you may have heard, we're saying Mercury, right? Mercury as the identity business inside of Merkle, and Merkle being a 30-year-old big data company and CRM business. We build databases for clients. We enhance those databases. Analytics teams build segments and models for clients, but it's about total experience. You may have heard the term M1, right? So M1 is the user interface that's custom for Dentsu. So Dentsu, as an agency network globally, utilizes the M1 platform. It's our Mercury team that built and maintains that platform. Dentsu has a proprietary panel that's matched and modeled to our 268 million US PII-based IDs, and that's thousands of attitudinal and motivational attributes. It's integrated with M1. It has integrations with all of the Dentsu media planning tools as well. So that's really what powers the teams across Dentsu, and this started 5+ years ago, to build audiences at a person level and ensure that they can drive addressability at scale across media, right? But Mercury is much larger than that. As I mentioned earlier, that's for Dentsu. It's special. We were the first big data business to be acquired by a holding company And then what followed was IPG, right, with Axiom, and then Publicis with Epsilon. But we're multifaceted as an identity business, and we have many clients that use other agencies, but we're the master ID, the golden record across the entire enterprise as an ID first party that they could utilize to target audiences across any channel or experience. Okay?
So, Gerry, at Advertising Week 2020, almost exactly a year ago, you and I had a similar conversation to the one that we're having today on the subject of how your clients are able to reach their audiences through data-driven audience targeting. That, of course, was a virtual conversation, and here we are having the opportunity to meet in person. What's happened in the past year on this topic, and how has the environment changed?
Yeah, so what's happened is we're in the room here, so that's good. Brian was in his home office, and I was in my home office, and we were talking about our kids running behind screens. Luckily, my 9-year-old son didn't jump in last year and go, hi.
Mine almost did.
But so what's happened? There's really 4 things that I see have happened materially in the past year. Number one is Google gave everyone a reprieve till early 2023 on Chrome deprecating third-party cookies as a permissible and readily available identifier passed through the browser for marketers to use, right? The house of digital built on third-party cookies. It's going away. However, that reprieve hasn't really changed much with our clients. They're like full steam ahead saying, you know what, I need to transform and rethink what my data and ad tech and MarTech stack looks like. So big change. More and more clients every day preparing for the cookieless future, procuring first-party IDs and data, and making that sort of the gold in their organization. Much like leaders in industries like retail with Amazon, leaders like Netflix and entertainment, they all have a common identifier, a person ID, whether it's from a login, right, or a great experience that they provide to consumers. I'd say second is every week we're getting an increasing number of these kind of a new flavor of an RFP. The RFPs are now enterprise identity and customer data platform. So what I mean by that is major organizations are saying we have disparate data across our entire organization. Sales, CRM, service, media, loyalty, right? Site experience. We need one ID, one basis of audiences that gets created, customer and prospect, and we want to connect that as addressably as possible without the use of cookies, so they're preparing. And the CDP just kind of comes naturally with that, and I won't dive too deeply into that, but the traditional data management platform built on third-party cookies is definitely getting replaced with a customer data platform, which is based on the strength of email addresses, names, addresses in that platform. So that's why it's called a customer data platform, right? So it's more known records. Third is education. So I think last year when we had our panel, I think organizations, their hair was on fire a bit more than right now. I think our clients are getting educated about the difference between an enterprise ID that is mine. I own it, I control it. I have a street address, a phone number, an email address. I know when that person's on my website. Versus the new currencies, UID 2.0 from Trade Desk, now IAB's kind of currency. How do we recognize individuals when they're roaming across the free and open advertiser-supported internet versus the walled gardens? Much more education, there's a big difference. Like we connect to you, right, as OpenX. We connect to the walled gardens. We connect, right, with other identity currencies. So that's the third piece is enterprise identity is not programmatic media and recognition of somebody to serve an ad. So that education's key, and we're helping clients with that. Fourth, I'd say, is big focus on recognizing anonymous visitors to an organization's websites and apps. How do you do it in the next few years? We have a product called Digital Consumer Recognition. It resolves a first-party cookie and some probabilistic methods of recognizing an individual based on IP address and user agent and time back to our Mercury ID. But it's amazing, so many clients are going, I do web analytics and multi-touch attribution. How do I do this when I can't fire a third-party cookie, right? So those four things are really key, and it wasn't I mean, it was around last year, almost exactly a year ago, but we're just seeing a lot more activity, understanding of that, and an ask from clients to help them with that.
You mentioned the walled gardens, and if the subject is addressability and scale across the open web, how is the open web doing on this when compared to the capabilities available to marketers behind the walled gardens? You want to take that one, Jen?
Sure.
So open web versus walled gardens, right?
Yeah, so I think about it in terms of, if you think about our partnership as an example, we share a mutual commitment to making sure that audience targeting not only continues but improves outside of the walled gardens. And we also want to make sure that that's easy for those who are activating. And so the way in which our partnership works is we match our universe of IDs to the OpenX audience graph. We have an incredible match rate. I think on our base of 268 million people, we're matching to like 180 million people. So even if you break that down into a little segment audience, you're still going to be able to achieve scale. And we do that based on hashed email addresses as well as device IDs. And so based on that match, then when a activation team is ready to activate a campaign, they will publish their audience to OpenX. OpenX will include that audience in a deal ID that is then targetable from any major DSP. And what the result of that is you get addressability as well as scale. And you know what you're getting, versus within the walled gardens, once it's there, you're not really sure what's happening, and they're grading their own homework. And in this case, we have visibility throughout the entire process. It's people in and it's people out.
So it sounds like Merkle and Mercury bring a tremendous amount of assets to the table, but it takes a village. It takes partnerships. It takes collaboration with other ad tech companies to make it all work.
100%. And every partnership is a little bit different, but the one thing that is consistent throughout is that it's our commitment to be able to provide our clients with the highest data fidelity available, and our commitment to partners to help them find the most scale that can be found.
So let's talk about some actual executions. OpenX and Merkle recently announced the partnership that we've been working on for the last few months, and got to talk about an actual brand marketer that has been taking advantage of our partnership and putting it to use. Let's hear more about what Ben & Jerry's is up to and exactly how they're leveraging all of this to reach more of their consumers.
Sure. So Ben & Jerry's over the summer launched a campaign with Mercury and OpenX, and it was a little bit born out of necessity. They had, during the course of the pandemic, they had revised their core target audience to reflect new consumption patterns. They built that audience within the Mercury platform, leveraging PII-based IRI data, and they had launched a campaign on the open web. It was an open exchange buy in a DSP. It was a video campaign, and as everybody in this room knows, the video marketplace is very volatile and subject to shortages, and the campaign wouldn't pace. And so we worked in partnership with the Dentsu programmatic team. They had reached out for assistance in troubleshooting. And after looking at everything, it was, listen, we have this new partnership with OpenX. I think that we should shift some budget from your open exchange line item into an exchange package with OpenX. I think it'll not only pace, but it'll scale in a big way. And to be perfectly honest, the team was not convinced that that would be the case, because it's counterintuitive to believe that an exchange package from one supply partner is going to scale better than an open exchange line item sourcing inventory from multiple supply partners. But time was of the essence, and so they were brave enough to give it a shot, and it more than worked. Over the course of the campaign, they ended up shifting 90% of the budget out of the open exchange and into that exchange package from OpenX, and they delivered against all of their KPIs. So video completion rate, as well as cost per landing page visit, and it was efficient. From a CPM standpoint, they weren't seeing CPMs any higher than what they were getting on the open web. So basically, that's what, in partnership, we were able to do for Ben & Jerry's, was we were able to deliver their person-based audience across the open web in a meaningful, efficient, and successful way.
OpenX and Merkle helping brands step out of their comfort zone and try new stuff and face their fears. That's great.
More ice cream.
And eat more ice cream.
Yummy ice cream.
Yes, when they're stuck at home. Gerry, what can other marketers, other clients of yours learn from Ben & Jerry's? Where can they take this from here?
Yeah, I think first is test and learn, right? Cookieless future, you're seeing presentations all the time about this, but nothing beats just taking a chance at building audiences, right? Off of utilizing, an ID obviously and a data partner that sources the data at a person level, right? So the IRI data that Jen's talking about and all the data at Merkle, those 11,000 attributes are all at name, address level. It's not your traditional kind of third-party cookie-based segments that you toggle on in a DSP, for instance. So test and learn. Take that away because you don't know until you try. I think another key takeaway is that clients really need to think about the audience that they're building. What we're seeing is this big shift in organizations from a world of, quote, analytics that's really been focused more on like digital measurement to now being about true audience-based analytics. Building that audience. If you have a bunch of data and it's sourced at a person level, it needs to be sitting somewhere. So you have to be utilizing Jen mentioned a data safe haven. You got to use clean rooms, analytic tools on top. So you need statistical analytics folks to like build a segment, build a model, and then you connect that segment or that list of individuals that normally would go to like an email campaign or direct mail campaign gets matched to the Facebooks, the Googles, the OpenXs. So really think about your organizations for the marketers here, the advertisers here. Think about like how you're going to build audiences in the future. And that's a huge takeaway because you might not have the skills, you might not have the tools to do it, and that's what I meant up front about kind of shifting or transforming to this new model of your MarTech, AdTech, and really the services that you leverage or the skills you leverage.
I think we're starting to glimpse into the Gerry Bavaro crystal ball here a little bit, but Jen, did you want to add anything to that before we look to the year ahead?
No, I mean, I think actually, as we think about the year ahead, one thing to take away from the Ben & Jerry's campaign is, again, that notion of people in and people out. So if marketers spend a lot of time identifying the right people to market to, like customer segmentation, it is a huge amount of time and money goes into that. So to walk away from that into a world of context or whatever they say is the next thing, it's unreasonable. And so there is the opportunity to work actual people from planning through to activation, through to measurement, and there's no reason not to because you're now able to scale and measure, and it's efficient and easy too. And so that's an important takeaway, I think.
Important. Okay, so let's look to the year ahead and maybe even a bit beyond that. Gerry, tell us any predictions that you have for how this part of our business evolves into the next 12 months and compared to maybe what we were talking about just 12 months ago.
Yeah. Although the Ben & Jerry's example is a third-party audience, and that's great, right? It's IRI data of individuals who are not yet customers. First-party data needs to be procured. So the crystal top on the crystal ball or in the crystal ball roaming around as a large part of whatever's in that ball is if you're not thinking about how you're creating a great direct experience with a customer or a prospect, you're just going to be in trouble. Go out 5-10 years, you're just going to be in trouble. Because there's going to be more restrictions, there's going to be more state-based privacy regulations. You got to think about that. I think also what you're already seeing out there related to this is major organizations saying it's our ambition to have 100 million known person IDs that we market to. We're building our own walled garden, right? And there's big CPGs saying this. Why not, right? I think all organizations should be thinking that way. Dollar Shave Club, right, and others, Harry's, giving P&G, Gillette, a run for their money. So, and I could name many. I mentioned this up front. So, crystal ball is do a great job with first-party identity and data. Create great experiences and collect that data, but then unify it. Create a master ID on it. Be transparent. Build your own private ID graph, right? Build your own walled garden, and then look to partners that can connect that data in the media world at, Jen said it, highest level of fidelity possible. Hashed emails, right? Device identifiers, how we match name, address, and when those things go away, if the browsers deprecate IP address, for instance, then make sure that your identity provider is using what is available. We're all going to have to use what's available. So those are sort of the takeaways on what's going to happen, I think, in the next few years.
So build your own walled garden if you have the scale and the consumer base to do so, and diminish your reliance on the actual walled gardens. It's great.
Yes.
Awesome. Jen, any thoughts from you?
The other thing that I think we'll see more and more over the course of the next couple years is right now we're spending a lot of time talking about addressability in terms of targeting, but I think that those IDs, whether it's the Mercury ID or the ID from LiveRamp or UID2, the ability to actually transact on those IDs within the bid stream, I think that will become more common of a currency moving forward. And that's partly born out of necessity, but I think it also gives the clients more control over what it is they're buying and more visibility into it as well. So I think that'll be a big change over the next few years.
Can you talk a little bit about how some of these ideas translate into the different format categories? CTV, for example, is going to have a different set of rules than the open web and display. And like, does that perhaps guide some of your clients into how they make some of these decisions?
It does, yeah. We call it the identity waterfall. And it's like, what, best, better, good, really bad, I guess from top down. Best will be name, address, email, and that's individual level identifiers. We match on hashed email. Device IDs, right, is going down a little bit, but if you match that, if you use that as an additional identifier with email addresses, you're good. But on CTV and addressable TV, right, you can't do it unless you have IP addresses and names and addresses, right? So that ecosystem requires a graph or an identity and data provider that can go, okay, I have Brian, and I need to now get that to a CTV provider. What is the connection? Does the graph have IP addresses to connect? Okay, addressable TV, you know, Xandr or Verizon. Well, we're going to match on name and address. You shouldn't be translating your concept of an ID on a third-party audience you have or a first-party audience, and like with your hair on fire again, like you should know, I have this key, I have this graph that I use, and it should be yours, right? We license our graph, and you use it to do those translations. But yes, that waterfall requires, or total experience requires all of those disparate identifiers to be utilized, right? So don't just recreate the audience in all these different worlds. It's not going to be possible anymore, right?
It sounds like you are obviously bringing real solutions to your clients, but you are half your role sounds like it must be just pure consultative. You've got to help them guide their way through this complex, navigated world.
Yeah, it's more, I mentioned solutions, right? My team doesn't really sell. Like they don't open a laptop and go, let me give you the classic 10-page PowerPoint on our product. They ask questions about what clients are trying to solve for. And then we apply identity to the problem they're trying to solve. It could be a database that has a bunch of records that are disparate all over an organization, right? Somebody enters the dealership for an auto manufacturer, and then they go on the site. They have no clue who those two people are, or one person is. It seems to be two people. So yes, consulting, identity consulting, and solutions, and start small, test, and then grow into enterprise identity, right? The master golden record, the one ID to rule them all in the organization. That's not going to happen overnight, right?
Well, that concludes our conversation, and I hope that we can maybe come back 12 months from now and see if some of our predictions came true and see where our industry has taken us. But thank you, Gerry. Thank you, Jen, for a great conversation, and thanks all of you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.